Of you
Uh,
going out and handing out cards and him calling people 8 days of
yeah,
that to
yeah,
get
yeah.
it
So I
ordered.
think we used to discuss day one, day two, day three, and I think we were like, we're getting to a low point, and I think the day we got first order, we celebrated. I think actually
Yes.
somebody, one guy trusted us. That business needs to be built in a marathon mindset. It need not be built in a sprint mindset where you say that okay, we grow 5x, 10x in a year. And for them, I think life is super difficult. I think again, I think if you look at them, again, society don't respect them. The police guys don't respect them on road. Customers don't respect them. Uh, and again, I think there were verbatims like people were saying that कि आपका अगर कोई दुश्मन है तो उसको ट्रक दिला दो and it's just your revenge is done. I think those were the verbatims you would see. People would cry while interviewing that you are thinking about us. Nobody cares about us over these years, which has stood out for you.
Yeah. Good, very good question. Nobody's asked us that.
It's advice I've got from Aviral actually, to be honest.
I'll share. So, Uttam, I don't know if you know, but I've just recently left to start something of my own. So, hopefully, in time, maybe in this month, we'll have some clarity on what it is. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Uttam Digga. He's the co-founder and CEO of Porter. Porter is India's largest on-demand logistics marketplace, present across 20 plus cities. It has 15 lakh monthly active customers and more than 5 lakh delivery partners. Join us as Uttam talks about his days at IIT KGP, building Porters for 10 years and more, and the transformation of India's logistics space during his journey. Welcome to the podcast, Uttam.
Thanks, Aviral. Thanks for hosting. Privileged to be here.
Awesome. So we'll start with a rapid fire. It should be fun. It's a good way to warm up as well. So if you could be a professional in any other field apart from what you're doing today, what would it be and why?
So it has been a recent realization. Once after I have two lovely kids, so I feel I would be a good kindergarten teacher. I love spending time
Okay.
with them. So it helped me to be in present.
A good kindergarten teacher. That's interesting. And why would you say that? I mean, I know you said you had kids recently, but um,
I think I just like spending a lot of time with them, observe them, small things, and it just time flies when you're around them. And it's not just my kids. In general, after this phase, I have uh, developed good affection with kids in general. So that's why I feel like I would be a good kindergarten teacher.
So next one, what have you recently changed your mind on?
I think a lot of things what used to happen in business and life usually we are swinging between the extremes. So I started seeing things in moderation. Started seeing these polarities. So I think that's one thing which has been a recent realization that a lot of our personal and business decisions we're just stuck on extremes. But I think the good part is in between balancing the both things.
so life is a spectrum and not binaries.
That's correct.
Nice. Um, Profit versus growth. And more
It
long-term
depends.
answer, not based on the season.
So I think it depends on the stage of evolution. I think there are external factors, but it depends on the stage of evolution. First, uh, 3 to 4 years, I think it's important to figure out the right business model. Once you have figured that out, I think it's important to pull full throttle on growth. Uh, as you're maturing, I think it's important to start seeing profitability, and I think it's just a balance which you would need to maintain between that. So I think that's how we have realized that seen things at Porter. Definitely, external factors do color you, but yeah, given those are at check, I think this is how I would calibrate.
So if you could talk to yourself when you were graduating from undergrad in your final year, what advice would you give yourself as a 20, 21-year old?
So this is something which I realized when I was starting or thinking about an idea in a startup. Uh, I think there was this tendency when I was in early phase of my life that I would undermine the upside of exploring something new, uh,
Hmm.
and overmine the downside. Uh, I still realize back in 2013, 2014, I would say that uh, it's like 2 years of career would go away if it fails. But now, in hindsight, I feel that in spectrum of 40 years of work life, 2 years is nothing. Uh, and the upside, again, I think it's not just financial upside. I think it's so much you can learn. And I think there's a sheer passion which you would witness while building something of your own or chasing or doing what you dream of. I think it's very fulfilling.
That's awesome. And I think that's great advice. It's also sometimes I feel a lot of people say it, but you've done it, which also tells us that you've gone through that journey of, just maybe having felt it and actually doing it. And I completely agree. And what's, the final one on the rapid fire is, what's one truth few people agree with you on? Something you deeply believe, but others don't agree with you on.
So I think there's this thing on time management. A lot of people feel that it's very difficult, and as you become leader, it becomes more and more messy. But personally, I have not felt it to be an issue. I think small rituals like just seeing things once in 6 months and just questioning whether this is what you want to do,
Hmm.
I think helps me to manage my time seamlessly well. So I think I feel that people make a lot of fuss about it, but I think there's something which is very natural to me, I guess.
Or do you think people want to pretend that they're busy the more senior they get? Can
I
it can
don't
it be
know.
playing to
I,
that as well?
I don't know. I think different. Every individual is different. I'm sure that's not true for everybody, but yeah, I think I think it's just about being that disciplined, questioning things. Otherwise, if your if your calendar has only incoming, no outgoing, then
Hmm.
definitely it would get messy.
Hmm. And what have you done on time management? If you could share some learnings for a lot of people who listen, actually, they would want to manage their time as founders.
Nothing fancy, Aviral. I think it's just about um, just once in 6 months, see that okay, you would have 500 to 600 hours in a quarter. How you want to spend it, and then question that okay, I'm meeting weekly. Is weekly required? Can I change it to fortnightly, monthly, or can I change it to an ad hoc conversation wherever required? What I've realized is that it's important to keep 30% of time just free, open for ad hoc things. It adds to the accessibility of you to the team. So I think I've been able to do this. I think it's a simple ritual. It's not rocket science.
And do you think being available 24/7 and being on 24/7 is an expectation of a founder?
So it's not being available 24/7. It's that somebody who wants to set up a time with you, you should be able
Hmm.
to set it up in next 1 or 2 days. It should
Right.
not be that I have something to discuss, but there is no calendar slot for this entire week.
Hmm. Understand. That makes sense. Would love to talk to you about your early days growing up. Where are you from? Um, as you said, maybe you did not have too many early influences of entrepreneurship, but how did you get to IIT? What did you learn there? You were obviously an economic student. So if you can talk us through that.
Sure, sure. So I come from Bikaner, born and brought up there. It's a city in Rajasthan famous for food in
And Bhuji.
general. Yes, and bhujia. Um, my father had a small garment shop back then, and my mother was homemaker. I was very close to my mother. There are certain things about her was fascinating, which I used to observe. She was very content. She was emotionally rock solid. I think situation didn't affect her that much, and she was deeply rooted in present. I think that's something which I really admired about her. So I think those are the things which I try to imbibe in my personality till date. I think that's the journey. I was in my early days. I was a casual student. I was not very sincere in life. Um, and I think that reflected in my grades at school. So I always used to get somewhere between 60 to 75%. Uh, Even in my 12th, I used to get 65%. And I think that at that point of time, my family had this big dilemma that I wanted to go to Kota to prepare IIT, but given my mediocre track record at school, they were thinking that is this the right use of their money? And is this something, is it a very big jump which they can trust me with? But eventually they decided to support me and they trusted me. And I think that was one of the pivotal moment in my life because deep in my heart, I used to feel that uh, it's something which I might not deserve, but given what unconditional trust and support which they have shown, I think it made me sincere and responsible in life in general. And I think the point which I tried to make to myself back then was even if I fail, I don't want to fail because of lack of trying. So again, I think I thought that I would just give my 100%. Luckily, in 12 months preparing after 12th, I cleared IIT, went to Kharagpur. Uh, uh, Again, I think we spent amazing 5 years at Kharagpur. I think it's like typical. Most of us have spent those time at college. Met Pranav there. He was also part of the same batch. He was also in economics. I was also in economics. So I think Kharagpur was fun. Post which was there in banking for a couple of years. Worked as an equity strategy analyst at the back office in J.P. Morgan. And Pranav used to also work there. We used to track a lot of companies in Europe and US. Again, I think after 1.5 years there, we realized that we could do more in our life and contribute more, uh, not to our personal gains, but also to society in general. I think that's where we started thinking about what should we do next. Um, I think back then, one of the big inspiration which we used to have is Uber. We were very inspired by how Uber built. According to us, what Uber did essentially was um they identified a market which has a very high fixed cost, and cabs were also very low utilized. So I think it's high cost, low utilization, and they thought that technology can be a big enabler to improve the utilization, and hence you can create a lot of economic surplus. Uh, and if the surplus is big enough, you can add value to both sides of the user and take sufficient commission for you to build a sustainable business. So I think that's essentially what happened. We were on a constant lookout on certain industries where you can apply those principles. 6 months into our research of meeting a lot of partners and customers, we discovered intracity last mile logistic (LCV) uh, can be a good market segment where these principles can be applied. So yeah, so I
Walk
think
us
that's
through some of the markets that didn't fit that profile, and kind of how you landed on this one. That'll be interesting to hear about.
so. When we were exploring, I think the first thing which we explored was passenger market. Uh, in India, again, I think passenger movements. I think at that point of time there was Taxi for Sure, Ola, and Uber in 2013 have announced that next year they would enter into India. So after 1 week into our research, we felt that the market is too crowded. And again, I think people have raised money. Even if we start, I think it would not make sense. So I think we discarded um, uh, passenger mobility because of that. The second idea which we evaluated was something in uh, car repairing space, garage. I think what later Go Mechanics and all did. Again, I think felt the economics are not good enough. You are not able to generate sufficient surplus so that you can justify whatever 15-20% commission which one would have to take to build a sustainable business. So I think that's one. In healthcare, we researched a little bit, but again, I think we realized that we don't have any background on healthcare, and that would be a limitation into this market. And I think that's one day when we were returning to office, we saw a lot of LCDs, and I think then there was this conversation between me and Pranav. We decided like, there are a lot of trucks out there, I think, and then the immediate reaction, Pranav's reaction was that I've not seen them a lot. But once you start noticing them, you would feel that they're all over the place. Uh, and I think how that's how we discovered LCV. And as a part of our research, we met somewhere around 500 odd partners and 200 odd customers. Our conviction in the thesis grew, and we thought that financially it would be viable. One of the other interesting thing, Mazin, happened in our research is, again, I think we got also emotionally bought into the idea because when we met these partners, I think they come from a very difficult socioeconomic strata. Uh, and for them, I think life is super difficult. I think again, I think if you look at them, again, society don't respect them. The police guys don't respect them on road. Customers don't respect them. Uh, and again, I think there were verbatums like people were saying that कि आपका अगर कोई दुश्मन है तो उसको ट्रक दिला दो and it's just your revenge is done. I think those were the verbatums you would see. People would cry while interviewing that you are thinking about us. Nobody cares about us. I think those things just made some emotional connection to the idea and gave us that additional kick to pursue.
I mean, that's incredible. So okay, so you spoke to quite a few people, you did your research, you had conviction. How did you get started? What were the next steps that you took?
So the next step was again to go live. So I think it's typical. You found a company, put notices to your respective companies. So we put notices. Then I think for first month.
That's a process as well, right? Like, I mean, how did you, convince your families, and was it something everyone was okay with? Was it an easy decision? Just
And you were also in finance, right, Uttam? It's a big
Yeah.
shift from finance to logistics. So maybe even that, in addition to what Mazin was asking.
Yeah. So again, one thing which I'm being lucky with and touch wood that I think family has been super supportive. Whether it's the quota idea, I think where they come from is that if you want to try it out, just try it out. I think they don't let you regret that. Okay, gosh, I would have done this. So I think that's what the typical orientation of the family has been. I think they have been very supportive in this journey. So I think I told them, they just nudged me that it's a good job. Why do you want to leave it? Is this the right time? And I told them that if you don't do it now, I think doing it after 2 years would be even more difficult. So let me try it out. And one of the other contexts also was that I'm from a Marwadi family. So in the age of 27, 28, you get married. So I was telling my mother that this next 12, 15 months is my chance. If I don't do it, I think I can't imagine myself doing later. So in that context, they supported me. Then I think initially for first couple of months, Pranav used to operate from the office. I used to operate from field. I would give visiting cards to everybody. So I think one of the good things which happens in our market is our key customers are SME. They are in a cluster. So you would go into a particular pocket in Mumbai, distribute cards to a lot of retailers and industries, tell them this is a new service. Why don't you call and book? Pranav used to be the call center guy. He used to do a lot of inside sales stuff. So he would take out like leads from Just Dial in India Mart and call them, and he would also take calls for booking. We onboarded certain supplies. Slowly again. I think it took us 8 days to get our first order.
okay. Of you going out and handing out cards and him calling people 8 days of that.
Yeah. So I think we used to discuss day one, day two, day three, and I think we were like, we're getting to a low point, and I think the day we got first order, we celebrated. I think
Yes.
somebody, one guy trusted us. And I think that's, I think we never looked back, fortunately, after that.
So walk us through, what was the vision? What were you pitching to your customers that you were meeting back in 2014? And I want to contrast that with the vision now, 10 years later, right? So maybe you can tell us what it was then and what the current vision of the company is.
I think if you look at our year one vision, I think you would laugh what the vision was. Essentially, the pitch to the customer was that I think it's like you typically speak to these guys in Hindi. Just like, yeah, sir, हमसे tempo book करो 20% सस्ता. That's it. I think it's
Yeah.
plain direct.
That's yeah.
I think that's what it
Okay.
worked for
Yes.
us.
Correct.
Yeah, I think this
To the
is
point.
to the point. I think this is what we do, because SMEs usually would not care about much back in those days. In contrast to today, I think today the there is a pricing sanity. It's not 20-30% cheaper anymore. It's only 5 to 10% cheaper. I think it's about now that you have more control of your deliveries. I think we are reliable. If you book with us, there is a certainty that the guy would come, he would come on time, he would deliver on time. So I think that's certainty, and the value for money aspects is what people like about us. So I think it becomes service at a certain price, which is a sweet combination, rather than just price, which was initially there. So I think that is there, and I think overall, I think the vision of the company has also shaped them quite a lot in last 10 years.
Okay, so going back to the early days, right? So you got that first order after 8 days. Walk us through, how did you go from there to setting up a team, and how did you how did the company evolve?
So, so I think if I have to speak about Porter, I think I can divide the journey into 4 phases. I think the first phase is 2014 to 2015. In the first 6 months, I think it was about, I think you're starting new, then you set up your call center. Then Vikas was working on technology, our third co-founder back then. We used to work on technology. In And I think first 6 months it was all about Google Sheet and telephone, on which how the business operated. Um, and the business was growing 50% year on year. The business was growing, compounding. We also had conversations with a couple of seed stage VCs, out of which I think K Capital trusted us, and they decided to invest on us. And once we have raised the first round, I think there were a couple of ideas on a couple of people who we have kept warm to be part of our tech team. So I think once we have raised money, we reach out to our friend circle and ask them, why don't you come and join us? So I think Vikas played a pivotal role in building the tech team. So I think large part of our seed investment went into building the tech team, getting that team right. Uh, and I think after 4 months of raising seed, we closed our Series A with Sequoia. Um, Again, I think that point of time, again, I think we were not responsible with money, I would say. I think it's like raising money too soon. So I think we had all sort of problems, like we thought that we were top of our world. We can do anything in logistics. So again, we got distracted, did a lot of things, did a thing in enterprise, did a thing in intercity. Uh, Again, burned a lot of cash in form of discount in the name of growth. But yeah, I think 6 months later, I think there was again sanity in the ecosystem. Raising money became difficult. We also realized that this is not the right way to build the business. And again, I think have to make some tough calls in late 2015. Have to close a division. Ask certain people to let go. Again, I think a part of your soul dies when you do that. So yeah, I think that was phase one. In phase two, I feel like that's a pivotal phase in our journey, where from 16 to 18 we had less money. Again, the business was not growing; it was stagnated, because the early users which you acquired, I think they were all price hungry users. But now you don't have discounts to give them. So again, the focus on experience became crucial. We realized supply is primary, so I think we need to solve for supply first. Uh, and again, I think one of the thing which we discovered in this strong phase, or in this difficult phase, is we as a team, the leadership team at Porter was a team where in difficult times we would unite better. It's not that team where during difficult times you would fall apart, you would start pointing fingers to each other. So I think that's a good thing. I don't know what we have done to do that, but I think the sheer initial set of folks which we had in the leadership team, they had that mindset, and I think we were blessed to have them. So yeah, again, I think this phase went by. We had some hard lessons. Again, I think frugality also became an important part of our DNA. That when we next raise money, we need to be frugal about it. So I think this phase ended. We started growing again from and learn how to build business in a frugal way, and I think build the momentum of growing 2x year on year. In this phase, I think the next phase, which is 18 to 20, was about replicating what we have learned. So I think it's an expansionary phase where we added cities, new services, and I think it's simple, but I think we were growing. We are just replicating what we have learned everywhere. And from 2020, post-COVID phase, I think has been again an interesting phase where initially we had a lot of doubts that the business would not survive given the heavy dependency on SME. Back then, a lot of people believed that Indian SMEs would not survive during lockdowns. So we thought that SME would not survive, then how we would survive. So we tried to diversify business to different customer personas. We started services like two-wheeler, house shifting platform, porter for enterprise, so that we can cater to different business persona. But when the market opened up, I think Indian SMEs were very resilient. They survived, they bounced back nicely. So our core business also uh, bounced back, and these newer initiatives were also doing good. So net, despite the higher base, we were compounding nicely in last 4 years. So I think that's broadly the journey. So I think it has been good, fulfilling 10 years.
Very interesting. And Uttam, I think we covered a lot, and hopefully we'll go deeper into some of these questions. But
Got it.
as an investor, the statement you made, which was we raised too much money, that's very different from what a lot of people show in the media, that we deserve this raise, and this is the amount of money we were supposed to get. Can you talk about that feeling when you realized that you had raised a lot of money? How was that painful reorientation from? I'm guessing we are all we've all grown up in situations where millions of dollars in a bank account can seem like a lot of money. So how to deploy
Yeah.
that, learning to take care of it. Very curious to learn from your experience there, because it was not like smooth sailing for you after having what is assumed to be a success, which is a big and fast Series A.
Yeah. So, Aviral, honestly, for us, we realized little late after burning a significant part of that money. And when the next inflow of money was difficult, I think that's where we realized. So I would not say that we were mature enough to realize it early. But again, I think once we realized, again, I think a lot of times it forces certain decisions on you because these constraints would force you to take some hard calls, uh, would would force you to prioritize on certain things which are really important and deprioritize certain things. So I think that's how we realized. Uh, and money was not there in 17 and 18. But again, I think what we learned from there, because I think we know that situation would change if we do good in future, we would have access to capital. But what we made a point in the leadership team, it's just not me, that whenever the money comes, I think it needs to be seen as a responsibility. That there is a lot of responsibility which is associated with money, and I think it's important that business needs to be built in a marathon mindset. It need not be built in a sprint mindset where you say that okay, we grow 5x, 10x in a year. We thought it's better to compound, let's say 2x, 1.8x for 8, 9 years rather than growing 5x in 1 year.
That's incredible. But wanted to talk about the other aspect of your business, right? One of your important stakeholders are, of course, the delivery personnel and people actually doing the delivery. So, over the years, what have you done to kind of incentivize their growth, and how what kind of initiatives are you guys doing today to kind of help your delivery personnel?
Sure. So if you look at the delivery partner, we call them partners internally. So if you look at our partners, the nature of the relationship which they have with the platform is a livelihood relationship, right? Livelihood relationship. I think one of the analogy which all of us have lived is employee-employer relationship is also a livelihood relationship. So the needs are pretty similar. So if you look at the needs, one of the core need is money, right? Because everybody needs money to support their livelihood. So again, I think then so the first need is money. So there are two, three aspects in money: the quantum of money, the consistency in which you make that quantum, the transparency. You should understand your payout, and how timely you can get that money. So I think these are the important aspects of money. One of the second need is respect. Even if the money is there, I think people need to be valued. People need to feel that they are important. If they don't get that feeling, they would not be the best version of themselves in whatever they do. So again, I think for them, for partners, again, I think that their benchmark or thresholds of respects was so low that even if you say them, sir, right, it was a big delight to them. In an R&R, if you give them a small certificate that you are our top 1% partners in Mumbai, I think they would frame it and put it in their house. So it was a very big delight because, again, you have to understand the socio-economic state that these guys, again, it's not a profession of choice. I think after a lot of elimination, they have reached to uh, this profession. And the third thing in this relationship, which is important, is for them, it's a big transition. I think they are usually low on confidence. Working in a platform from them is a big transition. So how you can support them so that in first 2-3 months their transition to this new way of working is seamless. So we worked on all fronts. I think we worked on timeliness of money. We have worked on quantum of money because the core idea is to create a lot of surplus and distribute it among the users. We've also worked on respect. We've also worked on the initial handholding part. That a lot of time in our early days, Mazin, back in 2014-15, smartphone penetration was also not that great. So you used to give smartphone to them, and they used to pay us back in 6 months. We realized that whatever cabs which Ola and Uber have made would not work for our industry because 60-70% of partners back then were illiterate or semi-literate. So we need to do a lot of symbol and color coding in our app so that it becomes intuitive. Even if they don't read it, they should still get it. So I think those are the things which we have learned. We were one of the first company in 2016 which did instant settlements, not instant, but daily settlements that the partner can withdraw every day. So
It's
again, I
one of
think
those core needs,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Getting that
So again, I think if you understand the code needs well enough, I think it's easier for you to channelize the energy on the right problem.
Well, that's quite an incredible insight, and I love how you think about everything in terms of economics and
I
incentives
think
and
that's how we are
it's,
trained for.
it's incredible. But coming back to scaling, and I have a couple of questions. But first, just in terms of the numbers, you've almost doubled revenues. How have you kind of scaled the business, done that consistently for so long? Can you any secrets to doing that while still without burning cash, doing it responsibly, as you've said?
So again, if you look at our business, I think it's not a complicated business. I think there are two axes to grow. Ours is a very localized business. So one of the axes to grow is that the more serviceable area which you have, you can cater to more users. So the more pin codes your service is like. So I think that's a geography expansion axis. So which would mean expanding to more cities, increasing the definition of a city. So for example, Bangalore is a 50-kilometer radius city. You can expand it to 60 kilometers. Uh, and expanding to new countries. I think all these are, so I think that's a geography expansion axis. So what we've been doing is we've not went overboard here. I think every year we launch 4 to 5 geographies. So I think again fairly calibrated in that sense. It's not that I've seen companies which would start 100 cities in a year. We have never understood that idea, and I think for SMEs it might not work. So I think that's on geography. The second axis of growth is if you launch into a particular geography, how do you penetrate in that geography well? So which would mean that you need to get your assortment of services right. and make sure that the product market fit of that particular service for that particular geography needs to evolve. So I think this is what we have been doing. If you launch more services, you penetrate the geography well. If you evolve product market fit of a particular geography, you are able to penetrate the geography well. So I think these are the two axes. I think this is how we simply think about business. It's not that complicated.
Simplify it and put it on two axes, where they practice it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah.
But want to talk about that a bit more, right? You now operate in more than 19 cities, so that's a lot of customization of your services across different cities to kind of find your micro product market fit, if you can call it that. How do you kind of balance that with building a product that's scalable and that works for everyone, right? How do you customize for so many different niches? Has that been a challenge?
So again, I think we have made a fair share of mistakes in that journey. I think in the initial phase, we were optimizing for speed, and then we realized that I think there is a lot of debt which we have incurred in that journey by doing so. Then I think we started focusing in a more platformized or a modularized approach to build our products. And in terms of user need, Mazin, if you see, though it's 19-20 cities, there are 3 to 4 segments which exist in customers, and then that's how they operate. There are certain customers which require what we call it internally a vanilla product, which means that point A to point B movement, they just require the vehicle. A certain set of customers which would require some sort of a value addition. Value addition can be in the form of loading, unloading help. It can be in the form of I send my goods, but it's a credit transaction for me, so I need a proof of delivery. Can you get it back to me? Again, there are certain industries which are very tax sensitive. So again, I think it's not that difficult. These are 3, 4 customer segments which exist in most of the cities. Again, I think the degree might vary from city to city. Tier 1 markets show some different mix. Tier 2 markets would show some different mix. But again, I think as you understand the needs of these segments well enough, I think you can make your product modular enough. It's not that difficult, is what I would say.
Makes sense. And talking about the geography axis, I mean, can you walk us through did you pick those 4 or 5 geographies, and recently you expanded to UAE? Can you walk us through that, kind of international expansion step and how you thought about that?
So I think the first few geographies were easy. I think you would pick bigger cities in India, and I think because you would realize that the potential of the market would be higher. Over the years, what we have seen is, I think 2 kinds of indicators are very important for our business. One, in a city, if the population is high, usually consumptions are also high, and that's one of the key proxy of how big the opportunity would be. Second, what is the number of SMEs are there in the city? Because our core customer segment even today is SME. 70+% of business comes from SME. So you would see the SME density in a city, the population of the city, and I think that's how those would be the 2 important conditions. Then you would check for certain regulations. For example, in Delhi, there are certain restrictions that during certain hours the vehicle cannot move, and so on and so forth. So based on these, so I think these are the 2 opportunity factors, and there are certain risk factors. And looking at the opportunity and risk factor, you would decide that you would prioritize the city in an order. So I think that's how you operate.
Where do you get the data of SMEs in a location, Uttam? Is it publicly available, or do you have teams to do that? Because that's quite valuable.
So I think there are 2 things. I think on Google Map and India Map, you can get some sense that how many businesses operate.
Okay.
It can give you a relative sense. It might not be an accurate number, but relatively you can compare 2 cities, that which cities would have higher businesses. And we also do a field recce. So first 15-20 days in a city, we would do a field recce and understand that, okay, these are the pockets, this is how the market operates, and this is the addressable.
Interesting. And, for you personally, as well as a company, there's been leadership change. You were COO and you became CEO. Can you talk us through that, the thought process behind it, and the whole,
Sure.
configuration for this change?
Got it. So I think when we started, we were three co-founders. I think back in 2021, Vikas decided to move out. I think his reason was that Riddhi, which is Vikas' wife, was based out of US, and he also wanted to move to US and explore that side of the world. So I think he let. So I think that's the reason why he moved out. We are still in touch. He still helps us in certain matters. The recent change which happened, where Pranav moved to a vice chairman role and I moved to from a CEO, I moved to a CEO role. The reason for that is, again, I think Pranav in last couple of years, he wanted to spend more time in exploring himself internally. So I think that's the journey which he wants to embark. And I think, again, I think Pranav is a very great person. I think he's also a Vipassana follower. So I think that's why he wanted to spend some time there. He wants to reduce intensity of external things in his life, and that was his motivation. Given what he has done uh, for the company for last 10 years, everybody was supportive uh, in this pursuit, and I think that's the reason why these transitions
I
happen.
understand. And how has it been for you, like the change?
I think it started with a lot of self doubt. I was little worried that without Pranav, how would I cope it? Because I think that's how we have seen it. It's like becoming it's like a family, right? Where you have two parents, and now with Pranav, let's say wanted to reduce intensity, it's like a single parent. It's a big change. In this change, again, I think we spoke to our leadership team, and we realized that in such scenario, I think everybody needs to fill that gap. I need to step up. The leadership team needs to step up. And there are certain changes which we did. So I think we had a lot of time, Aviral, to be honest. Pranav had given up enough heads up, so we were able to manage this change well. And Pranav also helped us to
Understand.
navigate this.
Oh, that's awesome. And congratulations on the new role for you. I'm sure that you would have been already doing a lot of it, but it's a very different feeling for sure. Like you said, self doubt and overcoming those things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what are your plans for the company for this year? I know we are almost like maybe one third through, but what is the focus? What are the plans? What are your priorities for the year?
So I think as a company, again, if I tell you our vision is to again move a billion dreams one delivery at a time. Um, I think with that, what we're trying to articulate is we want our product to affect more and more lives. So I think it needs to be a mass product. It creates valuable, uh, valuable difference to our customers and to our partners. Uh, and again, I think we want to also build a company which has experience as a differentiator. So I think there's a lot of focus internally on how we can make our service reliable. One of the examples which I usually give my team is look at Domino's. It says that 30 minutes nahi to pizza free. Uh, the amount of reliability which we need to chase, right? I think because businesses delivery is important because it's an important last leg of the transaction. If it's not done well, the business is not done well. So again, I think there is a lot of importance on experience, and I think brands like Domino's, Indigo's are inspiration because they have built great companies despite being in service industry on experience. So I think those are the priorities, and I think we've picked certain themes on experience which we are working on. Uh, and as a company, we are very input focused organization. We feel that if we just focus on right things, outcome would happen. And a lot of time, outcome might happen in a certain delay. So it also helps us to be a little calm
Hmm.
uh, and not be too noisy and anxious about the outcomes.
Understand. And where do you think this goes, and what does it look like in 2035? I know it's like very short term and very
2030.
long term.
um, so I think 2035 is maybe a little far. I'm not
Yeah,
thought of this,
maybe
but just
2030.
give you a sense.
Hmm.
I think next. 4 to 5 years, we feel that on a monthly level we can deliver somewhere around 1,000 to 1,200 crore kind of a top line,
Understand.
uh, and I think significantly better positive
Right.
uh, during that. So I think that's what the goal is. Let's see.
Awesome. No, wishing you the best for that. We need a lot of large scale companies in India. I think it's a good thing. And finally, just to close, and why we call this Founders Unfiltered, what is some piece of unfiltered feedback you received during your journey as an entrepreneur that really impacted you and how you
Sure.
look at life?
So this happened back in 2014 when I Pranav Vikas were meeting a lot of folks about how to set up a company, what's important. So we met un- one of Pranav's uncle, and he used to tell us that in initial days it's easy.
Hmm.
Building an organization is like growing. It's like tree which grows. When tree is new, right? I think there is a lot of unity.
Hmm.
You would see that there's a one stem, very limited branches, and
Correct.
the branches would not also deviate a lot from the main stem. So I think hence it can grow. The initial journey is accelerated and it's in a certain direction. But the problem arises once you grow big and big.
Hmm.
Then the divergence become more and more, and these divergence makes you slow. So in his opinion, good companies continue to grow better and better if they are able to keep themselves united,
Right. Interesting.
even if they have grown big. So I think that analogy has sticked, and touchwood, our relationship between the leadership team and also the founder group has been such that even during difficult times, we were able to stay even more united. So yeah, I think
That's
that's
awesome.
something. It was fulfilling to see how it worked out for us as
That's
well.
awesome. Yeah, I think your journey has been very unique. You've gone through a lot of ups and downs. And I think even riding through the pandemic would have been a huge challenge, especially given how physical your operations are. So it's good to see through all these journeys and changes, you've still grown and been on the path that you initially set out to. So thank you so
Got it.
much, Uttam.
I
Sorry.
I just had one question. What would be the unfiltered advice which you have gotten over these years, which has stood out for you?
Yeah. Um, good, very good question. Nobody's asked us that. Mazin, do you want to go first, or should I go first? You tell me. You, because I think you need to think.
I think well, I can go. I
Yeah.
can go. It's advice I've got from Aviral
Okay.
actually. To be honest, so use it. But consistency pays off. Compound over time. I think it's one of the things. Like as a personality, I tend to jump from one idea to the other. But yeah, if you can stick with something and just improve it a little bit every week, every 2 weeks, like we do this podcast, then yeah, it gets better over time.
Couldn't agree more. I think
Yeah. So maybe I'll share. So Uttam, I don't know if you know, but I've just recently left to start something of my own. So hopefully, in time, maybe in this month, we'll have some clarity on what it is. Um,
got it.
but it's kind of related to it. I think someone told me maybe like a year or two back, where they said that you may be the smartest and most talented person, but what really differentiates people um, and sets them up for life is courage and actually being able to do what you desire and what you think will make a difference. And courage is in very short supply, is what
That's
that
right.
person had told me. And I think he was telling me, obviously, he was like making this statement, but I know he was saying that maybe you should do something of your own. And that kind of has stayed with me. And I have made the leap as well. I know you've done it like 10 years ago. Mazin's also done it before. It's the first time for me. Um, so that's really stayed. I mean, and I think that was unfiltered. to me. I think it was told in a very nice way, but he was saying like, "Hey, kuch kar le." That was the that was the
Yeah.
that was the that was the feedback that I had got.
But I'm telling you, it's worth trying out. I
Absolutely.
recollect in 2015, when I think before K Capital round, because I was getting married in 2015 also. I was telling Pranav that if you're not able to raise funds in 6 months, I would have to start a job somewhere.
Hmm.
But I was telling him that it's absolutely worth it, man. I think we've learned a lot,
Hmm.
and it is so fulfilling.
Right.
So I think thanks for it. And I think luckily next 3 weeks we raised money.
No,
So yeah,
that's good. That's good.
but it's worth it. It's worth
No,
it. You would enjoy it.
absolutely.
I'm sure.
Absolutely. At least like my first 4 days of unemployment, I absolutely loved it. I hope to have the same feeling for the years as well. But yeah. But thank you for asking that question. I don't think anyone's asked us
Thanks.
this. And Mazin, like now, if everyone asks us the same question, I don't think we can give a different answer. So we'll have to have like unfiltered feedback for everyone. But that was a good one. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.